Into order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we can run the roll call.
Robert Dew.
Here.
Kevin Fuller is absent. Don Jensen.
Here.
Tom Shifsky. Archie Vickerman. Terry Furlong. Tim Cole.
Yep.
Ryan Frandl.
Yep.
And Brett Gary is absent.
Okay, and Lisa Ritchie from staff, and we have a guest, Lee Kruger from St. Paul Port Authority on the Zoom meeting with us. First item is to adopt the agenda, and before we do that, I'm going to propose a change under section 6. Item C, I'm going to move to item A and move the other 2 items down so we can have our discussion with Lee, and unless he wants to listen to a riveting subsidy policy discussion. So move. I don't know if we need to vote on that. Do we? Second agenda? Yeah. Okay. To adopt it with the change. With the change. Okay. I have a second. All's in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Agenda's been adopted with modification. Meeting minutes from last meeting on September 14th. I'll entertain any comments or motion to approve those meeting minutes. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the meeting minutes have been approved. I don't think, other than Lee, we have anyone else on the Zoom call. No one from the public in the room, so we can strike that portion. And with that, we will move into the agenda item, authority business and action items, and item C, which we're going to do first. Discussion of the Port Authority, and I will go ahead and I'm going to kick it off. So we have Lee Kruger on the line with the Port Authority. And Lee, what is your role at the Port Authority?
I'm president.
Perfect. Just to give everyone a little bit of background. So myself, Mayor Furlong, City Manager Frandl, we've had a couple of initial discussions with the St. Paul Port Authority on how they can assist the EDA, just in general in achieving the goals of the EDA. Talked about the things that they can do and have done, around the state. The Port Authority in those conversations has kind of discussed their breadth of capabilities and the assistance they can provide. Under their statewide authority. We've had, it was kind of very informative for me anyways, on the opportunities they can assist communities with, and a number of things helping us achieve our economic development goals broadly or for a specific site. They can help with kind of remediation issues, brownfield sites. Help us figure out highest use for commercial properties, identifying other broader market opportunities, attract and retaining the right businesses for our city and our vision. Help us, diversify our industries and our economic base, increase living wage and tax base, and also help us reach out to, buyers, sellers, and provide enhanced brokerage services. They actually have a separate group that does that, that we can hire. And I guess by and large, what one of the things that came out in the discussions, at least from my perspective, was there's a number of things that we've talked in our meetings about not having a full-time staff person. And back in the old days when we had somebody dedicated to the EDA, we had people constantly looking for grant opportunities, either broadly or for specific sites, and doing a lot of work in between our meetings, where us as authority members, we come in here once a month, but staff has to execute in between. And I at least saw this as a good opportunity that we might be able to supplement some of those needs, by engaging with the Port Authority. And that led us into some specific discussions about the Lilly News property, some of the what was going on, what we kind of wanted to do, but we didn't want to just write a check, and talked a little bit about what was possible, I guess, and again, just in hypothetical terms, we talked about all of what could happen down there in the St. Paul. The folks at the Port Authority had some wonderful ideas and case studies and examples of how they've got over these hurdles in a lot of other arenas. And so we invited Lee to come and talk with us a little bit today about really kind of regurgitate some of those discussions that just the three of us have been privy to at this point. And then I think my desire would then to follow that up with a conversation internally here as to do we want to what are the we kind of know some of the opportunities to engage them, but talk about those opportunities. Should we engage the St. Paul Port Authority folks to try to get something done? So I of course wanted to just run headlong and get it done and do it, and then I got smacked down by our current transparency efforts. So we thought we'd have the conversation. The timing was good. We just had conversations last week, so timing was good to talk to the full EDA and have an opportunity for open discussion with Lee. So Lee, I've kind of covered the broad strokes there, and maybe you can chime in and add a little bit and cover some of what we discussed in the last two meetings.
Sure, and thank you for inviting me here. Am I coming through okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yep, hear you great.
Great. Well, thanks everybody. And as I was introduced, my name is Lee Kruger, and I've been at the Port Authority for about 8.5 years. My background before the Port Authority was working in retail real estate. I worked on shopping centers throughout the many locations in Minnesota as well as other states. I never had really the A+ types of properties. I always had a lot of the C's and sometimes D's and F's. But so the Port Authority I'm gonna kind of give you a quick update of what we do. For those of you who know us, we do manage the harbor of St. Paul. You think of the barges on the river, we handle the basically consider the Mississippi River as a water highway between St. Paul and New Orleans. So that's kind of one of the main tasks we do. We're a legislatively created body. So we were allowed to come off the river about 50 years ago and do industrial redevelopment within St. Paul. And the third area we work on is our statewide services. We actually have joint powers agreement in probably 64 of Minnesota's counties. We do our property assessed clean energy loans, which are basically as part of the Obama stimulus plan of 2008 to 2010 area through the State Commerce Department, where we actually provide funding for energy savings for buildings. And it does tend to work through the tax assessment process. That's why it's property assessed. It's a great plan. It really does save energy, and financially the cash flow works. That the energy saved and the amount of money that people save is more than the debt service increase. So we also, through that statewide stuff, we're a licensed real estate brokerage firm. We currently are working on a project up in Bemidji. We're helping their city council met last night and started working on a project that we're going to help with Cross Anderson here in the Twin Cities and Sanford Health to work together a healthness center up in Bemidji. We've worked for Sartell, we've worked for Red Wing, we've also worked with the League of Minnesota Cities trying to sell a site that just closed last week next to their headquarters on Rice Street by the Capitol. So because my background, as I said, I worked in shopping centers, and what I explained in our last meetings, I have a bias on kind of that private sector bias on how I look at things. And I've never really been a huge fan of municipalities kind of control the outcome of a project through zoning. I've always been a fan of site control. You guys are probably aware that we bought the Hillcrest Golf Course on the northeast section of St. Paul, right off McKnight and Larpenteur. And I was a big fan of the city of St. Paul trying to buy the Ford site rather than spend 12 plus years working on a master plan and zoning. And the only way they can kind of get their outcome is well over $100 million in a TIF plan for that one. I was impressed that Ramsey County bought TCAP, the site up in Arden Hills. Not necessarily impressed with how it's gone in the last few years, but at least they had site control and they're trying to figure that out. And Ramsey County also did the same thing with the West Publishing sites. They're trying to get that developed. They're taking a long time. And my way of doing it is kind of be a little bit more aggressive, get site control. And when we met on the phone a few weeks ago, and that's one of the things I told Robert was, if you guys have a site that you're trying to control the outcome on, I think the easiest way that my preference, if it was me, is how do we help you get site control? Whether it's an option, whether it's a purchase, whether it's a deferred payment plan, we've done all of them. Hillcrest was a flat out sale where we bought it, and it's a 112 acre site. So if you compare it to Ford, which was 122, it's just about 90% of the size of Ford. And with our partnerships with the city, we're going to be able to help control the outcome. We want about 50 some acres of industrial land. The city wants about 40 acres of housing, and then there'll be some green space and infrastructure. But that's kind of how I think we can help you is we know that certain municipalities we've given some consulting to Maple Plain. They have like one full-time equivalent doing about 3 persons jobs. And I'm expecting that that's not the rare situation. And we can come together and put a plan together with you. You would be our client. We would work for you as a part of our brokerage arm. You get all the confidentiality and loyalty. We do not represent buyers very often, unless they are the city. We would normally work for our client, and we would not do the dual agency where we would represent the seller. In this case, we would be representing the city of North St. Paul. So that's kind of how I proposed it. It's a little bit about us, and I'm more comfortable answering questions than just telling you a bunch of stories. But we have used this concept a couple of times to try to get site control that we're working on right now on a couple of projects in downtown St. Paul that we think will work. And I think some of the things we're learning on it can be used by your city. So I'm open to questions, and hopefully I give you a quick summary of what we are and what we can do. Kind of my bias. And I think the thing for you guys is if there's a site you want to control the outcome, my goal would be to help you figure out how to get control of it.
So maybe to kick it off, where my head is on this is, we've talked a fair amount about the Lilly building and what's going on there, and what we understand the current ownership's pressures or issues are, and what we think their outcome is, or what a good outcome for them is, and I think we've collectively decided that we likely don't have the appetite within the EDA or the city as a whole, to rip a check, but how else can we get there? And in those conversations, there was, a lot of, Lee must have gave us, 4 or 5 examples that sounded brilliant to me. And so where I'm hoping to take this, and we can, discuss whether we do it or not once Lee's off the line, but where I'm hoping to take this is to get a, consensus to move forward and see what an engagement with the St. Paul Port Authority would look like specific to the issues surrounding, the Lilly building and kind of that end down there, get them tied in with our vision, try to get them tied in with the current owners, brokers, and understand what their issues are, and try to craft an appropriate engagement with them to move the ball on this, and ultimately for us to gain site control, because that is one of the concerns that we have. I think we have, and maybe even the sellers have. I don't want to speak for them, but what's going to happen, and what ultimately is, that in the town going to look like. So the best way to do that, I agree with Lee, is once we gain site control, then we hold a lot more cards than we presently do, which is let the market do what it's going to do. We might have another cat kingdom or something down there. So anyway, with that, I'll open it for questions to the group.
So Lee, can you just explain to the group why you're a fan of having site control?
I think because then the way that we look at it is, then if you have a desired outcome you want to do, you can find a developer, you can end up finding a end user. I'm going to give you an example that we wanted to do. Have any of you heard about our purchase that we're pursuing for the Bix Produce building off of 35E in Maryland in St. Paul? That was the site when Bix Produce ended up moving to, they couldn't expand there, so they moved to Little Canada. And what ended up happening is when Bix put it on the market, they sold it to the state of Minnesota. If you recall, that was going to be the site of the COVID morgue for the state, because it was a refrigerated building. They felt they could store about 5,000 bodies there. Well, needless to say, the city council in Ramsey County were not very happy about that. And again, that's an extreme example, but at the end of the day, I kind of say, that's why you guys, when you have a site that you don't control the outcome of, you can't really stop the state from buying it. Now, unfortunately for the state and for the neighborhood, it was never used as a morgue. It was used as a storage for their PPE products. So when the state decided, okay, we're going to go back on the market, they have a three-pronged disposition strategy. One, they have to go to the other state agencies, of which all of them passed. Then they go to the local government, which would be the county, the city, and us. We chose to step in. Had we not, they would have went to the private market. And right across the street from that was a building that was sold for self-storage, about 60 to 80,000 square foot building that now will have one job. We usually try to control the outcome by trying to get one job per 1,000 square feet. The Bix building is over 70,000 feet, and the highest bidders for that site were going to be public storage and self-storage units, because we've heard from them already. And we kind of said, no, we'll step in and buy it and try to control the outcome and create jobs and tax base for that particular area of St. Paul. Now, in many cases, the private sector, if left to operate, can deliver an outcome that you can be happy with, and then we don't really need to intervene. There are some times when you want to control the outcome. In this particular case, our goal was to control the outcome and on the Bix with jobs. And so that was our focus, and we clearly think that it's been positive. We've already received 2 offers, and we haven't even closed on it yet. But again, that's an extreme example. You're not really going to be dealing with too many cases of COVID morgues, but that's a great example for us that by us not intervening, it could have become a morgue or self-storage. So our goal was to really control the outcome as best we can. That's why I'm a big believer in site control. If you let the market buy this site, there's also sites that I think a lot of landowners have a hard time coming to grips with, that sometimes their properties have a negative value. And I don't know this site as well as you do, but I know that when we bought the old Midway Stadium where the St. Paul Saints used to play, we did a land swap with the city where we traded the Diamond Products building downtown, which became the home of CHS Field, for this site up by the old Saint Stadium. And the cleanup costs on that one were more than the value of the site. So we were able to come in and get some grants and cleanups to kind of make it worthwhile. Had we not done that, the site probably would have sat vacant for a long time just because the cleanup, that there was a significant amount of contamination as well. It was an old dump site. It was the dumping grounds for the fairgrounds. And all the methane gas that you had is the barns dropped all of their manure in there for decades. And so it just was not, the private sector was not going to buy that with the cleanup costs that they were. So us being able to come in and get grants and clean up, it allowed us to get a part of the bonding bill one year from the legislature to help by us delivering jobs and tax base on that site. The city of St. Paul was able to get a grant to help build CHS Field. I know I'm giving you a long-winded answer, but I think if you really want to help control the outcome for a key site, I've just always been a fan of being the one to buy it. Or at least get an option or some kind of payment structure that it's your site, and then you can work with a developer to get the outcome you want.
Leah, one item, this is Robert, as we started talking too, one of the things that I thought was of interest in why, why it might be wise to be working with the Port Authority at any level, whether it's, the site we're talking about or any other, is with what's going to happen over at Hillcrest and what's planned. I mean, that's just not that far away from North St. Paul. And when we look at the number of housing units that are proposed down there and even the business structure that's going down there, I think there can be some, I hate to use this term, but synergies between, us and the Port Authority in terms of, hey, we have all this housing coming in, and as we're experiencing now in town, right, with the number of new units that we have coming online and have been brought online in the last 12 months and will come online in the next 12 months, we need services to serve those residents. And if you look at everybody over there in Hillcrest, what are their immediate options? Their immediate options is to get out there and, White Bear, I think it's called the Hillcrest area there on White Bear, or down Sunray, or here, we're just as close, if not closer. And if we have what those folks are looking for, be it restaurants, retail services, whatever it is, we could find that there's, we'll be able to gain a lot more information in terms of what the needs are. We might be able to even, we talked a little bit about the ability, if we're affirmatively engaged, either for a specific property or just even engage in ongoing conversations. We might have somebody come to town. I know that they've got a big chunk planned for light industrial down there. We have somebody who comes to town, wants to do light industrial. They don't really fit here. We don't have the right site for them. We can push them over to Port Authority. Hey, right down the street here is, something that's in the works, or vice versa. Maybe they've got something that doesn't work in their development nearby, and they can push them our way. So I think there's a lot of reasons beyond just, the services they offer to, be engaged with them at some level. And then we started talking about, again, that while they have as Lee mentioned, they're licensed brokers, they have a brokerage arm, which is great, and something, we can certainly take advantage of, if you will. But beyond that, they have the broader staff that's more in tune with, if we've got a cleanup issue or we've got, something in that arena, what's currently available for grant stuff, and what are the timing, and, when do we got to get applications in, and are we even eligible for it? Just the brain damage sometimes that goes into figuring that out. Forget writing the grant proposal. All of in figuring out, is it the right one for us, or are we going to be competitive on it? They have broader staff that we could potentially engage with in that regard too. So almost like an extension of staff for the city in a way. I guess those are my terms, not necessarily Lee's, but so that's the other positive potential outcome, I guess, of the relationship.
And you're
We
correct,
talked
and that's how Bemidji took it. I mean, you guys have the sophistication. You just sometimes have just staff that if you're going to do one project, it's hard to hire somebody if you only have like a one-off. That's what we did for Sartell. Right off of, they had the burnt out Verso paper mill, and they just needed some consultant. They were selling the project to a Canadian firm, and they were going to come in, and what they had done in the past was they pull out the recyclable materials, and then they create an LLC and declare bankruptcy. So basically the only thing we did was tell Sartell was to get a $3 million performance bond. And they did that. The company they wanted the site, and I think it really saved them from just kind of, ripping out all of the recyclable materials and then abandoning the city. So they didn't want to leave $3 million on the table. So it was a small deal, but we had done that before in environmental cleanups, and Sartell had not. So just that little bit of consulting on a cleanup situation really helped them to hold this company's feet to the fire. So it's kind of whatever you guys need. But they didn't need to go hire a staff for a one project that was going to take about a month's worth of work. So it's just, and we had the experience doing that before. So we've done a lot of things throughout the state that can just be what we learned could maybe be helpful for you.
Like I said, those options, deferred. We looked at for Lily Building, what are those options? We had mentioned, some sort of deferred way of getting creative financing of
Yeah, and
control of the Lily Building. You would be tying up a lot of money.
Yeah, I think one of the, part of the discussion, and Lee, I'll let you jump on here in a second, but, part of the discussion was, well, what's possible? We've had some engagement with their brokers and kicked around some numbers and what have you, really engaging at a high level with them and understanding, what are the true needs of the current property owners, get out from under the annual tax burden, concerned about the potential environmental cleanup if they try to sell it or refurbish it for an alternative use. Do they have immediate cash needs, or can they defer it for potentially a better or the current asking price down the line? All of these things. Is there some legacy stuff that they want to go with it? We talked about that. Does somebody want to put their name on a property at some point, or a future building, or whatever? There's all this stuff, and so that's one of the things that we talked about is getting somebody affirmatively engaged and having those conversations and talk about all of these different possibilities of how we can structure a win-win, and then they've got the team to do that. So, and Lee, I don't know if you want to add to that at all.
Sure. What we have we actually made this proposal on the Sears site next to the state capitol, and where the Seritage had been trying to sell that project for a while. We made them an offer. In effect, it was for $1 and other good and valuable considerations with a balloon payment at their price points 2 to 3 years down the road, allowing us time to get the entitlements we needed for the space, find a joint venture partner, and then to get it started and stabilized, and then we would pay them 2 to 3 years. Their brokers liked the idea because they'd been struggling with this for years to try to come up with a concept. They brought it to Seritage, and even though I think it was a great idea, Seritage said no. Their attitude was, we're going to get this sold within 60 days and we're going to get our price. Well, that was 2.5 years ago, because this was well before COVID hit. And their holding costs on that were over $500,000 a year in real estate taxes, and about $200,000 to $250,000 in holding costs for the Sears building. And the reason they can't really tear that building down is they couldn't do it until they got a blight finding in order to protect their opportunities to get a tax increment financing plan. So the building, they had to keep it secured, and St. Paul has been dealing with a little bit of issues with homelessness. I think you've seen that. You've also had they had to have minimal fire control systems on there. So they're spending $750,000 a year to hold that site. The 2.5 years that have gone by have cost them now, well over, pushing $2 million, plus they have no deal in place and they still have a few more years of holding. There are a couple other people in downtown St. Paul that have been trying to sell either sites or buildings for about 4 to 5 years now. We made them the offer and one group basically accepted. And they don't really need the cash flow immediately, but they want to get close to their price. So we said, we'll buy it from you. We'll take on the environmental liability. So we give them the indemnity from environmental, unless they were basically the cause of any contamination. So in this case, this particular seller downtown, we had a conversation with him today. He's ready for a purchase agreement. He's willing to take a little bit of what he calls a bargain sale and able to get a little bit of a tax benefit if we close by the end of the year. And this allows us to find a development partner, as we've done 7 joint ventures. And when we're in there as a partner, really what we do is we use our partner's money and financing, but we have 50-50% on the 50-50 decision making. So whatever leases or outcomes they get on the project, we have control. And that would be a model that we could help you guys create with a potential developer. Or you could just flip it, which we'll probably end up doing on the BIC site. But in this particular case, the seller is more than likely going to get close to his price. He's just not going to get it for a few years. That gives us a chance to help deliver the outcome. He's happy about that because every year that goes by, this is about a 42,000 square foot building right in the heart of St. Paul. He's got to keep it, he can't shut down the elevator. So he's got zero, he's 100% vacant. He's spending money on the building and collecting zero rent. So for him to get off his books, knowing that he's just taking a deferred payment, we're going to make a deal with him. And then there's another adjacent lot next to it. Same thing. They've been trying to sell these sites for years. So it works. We think it should work. And that was the concept that I explained to Robert, is that if the owner of the site you guys want is not in desperate need of cash, then, and we also had another project that you guys may know the developer, his name's Rich Packinen on the Hazelwood site. And he used this concept to say, look, I'll pay you cash right now, but it'll be a discounted sale, or the Port Authority can partner with me and pay you your price. You're just not going to get it for 2 or 3 years. And in that case, almost every one of those sellers, there were multiple sellers, they all said, well, we'll just take the cash and run right now. And so it was a significant discounted sale, but it was a contaminated site as well. And they just wanted to get it off the books and get out the indemnity of being the party that was going to be deemed the cause of the contamination. So that's how the deferred payment worked. And in the Rich Packinen site, the sellers accepted a lower price up front. And in these other 2 sites, they're going to let us buy it. We'll have fee ownership of it. Basically, it's just a form of seller financing. And we're going to do it interest free. So.
Any other thoughts or questions for Lee while we have him on the line? Okay. If not, Lee, I appreciate your time. We'll probably have you drop off, and then we'll talk about you behind your back.
Got it.
Hey,
that's been known to happen.
We'll talk about next steps, and then I'll circle around with you after the fact and see what the next steps are. So.
Well, thanks for including me in your meeting today, and I wish you well on the rest of your agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
All right,
Lee.
thanks, everybody.
Okay, take the opportunity to engage with them and explain, our vision, as thin as it may be. And I say that because we may not know exactly what should go there or will go there. But what we do know is whatever does go there, we want it to, be compatible with, what's going on in town and something that, serves the needs of the community. And so if we do nothing, it has the potential of getting away from us, and it could turn into something great, or it could turn into something we really don't like and could be there for a long time. So I think that's really the next step we're proposing, is just to say, let's engage with them and seek, share our vision with them at a deeper level. We'll give them the opportunity to do whatever due diligence they need to do, and then propose an engagement plan, with a goal. That's, I think, what we're asking.
So I think the outcome, or I think the situation down there right now is kind of, I think the owners are in a position that who's holding costs are costing their money, and that building is not going anywhere because of the condition it's in. They're not going to put money into it, and we've had multiple people look at it, and it's too much. It's almost a tear down the building and start over. And that's kind of what I'm seeing or what I'm hearing.
Right.
And this gives us an opportunity, if we were to get control of it, state control, it gives us those opportunities to be able to do what we did across the street.
And I think it's good for us, both as an EDA, as a city as a whole, in that they can bring, this is stuff they deal with all the time, right? I mean, they do it every day. So we don't have to go out and hire a Springstead and somebody to run all these numbers for us. And they have that on their staff. It's something that they can do as part of their engagement that we can bring back. I mean, let's just hypothetically say at the end of the day, the owners say, yeah, we're willing to let it go, and take it at a X number, but we'd like to get a little now and some later, right? Well, they can run these numbers, and then we can and give us something to work with. And then if they come back and we need to produce some cash, at this point in time, we're in a good position where it's not, the EDA is sitting up in the room here, going into the city council with their handout saying we want to spend, 400, 500, whatever the number is. It's, hey, we've sought this is professional advice. We've worked this out. This is why it's good for everyone. And this is what we're trying to do. And I think it gives us that firepower and that ammo and some facts behind, behind whatever it is we come up with. And so I think there's, and again, the other thing is just the grant opportunities and just the general engagement with them and not having to learn lessons that, they learn every day is, there's a potential benefit there. So I don't know, I don't know that this is a vote issue. I think it's just, unless it is really just a consensus that, we can continue to have explore deeper conversation with them with the ultimate goal of seeking some sort of proposal from them, to engage them to help us on that particular parcel. That's really what we would be doing specifically. So we're not spending any money at this time. At the point in time in which we do that, obviously we'll need to come back and take a vote on that.
I'm not sure it's a whole issue on that because we're moving ahead.
We can put it to
an outcome.
We can put it to vote if we like. I mean, it doesn't. I don't think it hurts. So if that's the case, I would entertain a motion that authorizing myself and or any other member of the EDA, whoever we determine to engage with St. Paul Port Authority to explore next steps on representing and assisting us on a really building purchase.
Yep, and I think there's another step there too. We want to engage with the broker of the negotiation.
I think we would put that to the St. Paul Port Authority would be my intent. We might do it jointly initially, but they're going to do the legwork under their brokerage arm. That would be my intent. But
as part of the discussion,
murky is
have
that.
they done hazardous waste remediation?
If they have, I have not. If they've done it, I have not seen I saw the results of the 3 proposals that they sought to do the study. There is no, to best of my knowledge, I have not engaged anyone, nor have they done any hazardous material stuff on the property. So, which is concerning. I mean, because the numbers were not. I mean, it's like $5 grand. I mean, if we're not spending $5 grand to figure out what's in there, then we're just not wanting to put money into the property at all. In which case, I think there's probably a proposal that would allow things to move forward. And but again, I don't know their situation, and I know you're close, so I'm not going to lean on you to say, but I don't know their situation in terms of, if we said, hey, you're asking whatever they're asking, $800,000 or whatever the number is.
Well, they even mentioned that there's properties out there, this could be potentially one of them. It's a major challenge.
Potentially.
You start.
Well, could potentially be that, yeah.
But if they, if they can, if we can paint a picture to say, well, this is the number you want, and we can get you there or close, but it's going to be a few years down the line, but at least you don't have the continued holding costs or whatever. I'm not sure what gets structured. I think those are all conversations that need to be had, but for this group, I think it's just, do we or don't we want to engage the St. Paul Port Authority? Because right now we're kind of running out of options on how to move the ball down there, unless we're willing to write a check.
What really concerns me, and I will, anything that has to do with money, I will abstain from being involved in it, but my feeling is they will kick the can down the road as far as they can possibly go. And at some point in time, we might be stuck with something we don't want. Somebody comes in with an idea and they're desperate to get out.
Fire sale. Agreed.
And that or an owner with minimal tax base. Revenue potential.
I mean, when we look at the charge of the EDA, business attention and attraction, building the tax base in the city, helping to bring in and provide services, for the residents. I mean, this to me is all part of what we should be doing. And if we had a larger bank account, I would suggest that we probably already own that building. And so if we can find a creative way to gain control of it, so all these bad things that we can think about don't happen, and satisfy the current owners at the same time. And
it's just one more step to tap into what we're already trying to accomplish in the community already.
So I guess I would go along with the fact that we continue our exploration with the Port Authority to determine what avenue best suits our position with regard to consulting and whatever fee structure we can come up with or is available, so we can make a decision on that part of these maybe the next month. I think I'm going to move forward with this exploratory. I think that's vital. And I also think that's probably the right direction, because to your point, Robert, if we had unlimited funding, it'd be a different story, but we don't. So I think we need to seek a little advice, a little help, a little creativity, and I think this might be the avenue to continue going down.
Anybody opposed to the concept?
I'm not, the talk with the Port Authority, if there's an issue with cleaning. Sounds like it would be a good thing to have them on your side. And
Definitely. Especially if there's grants available
yes,
to do stuff like that too.
50 years ago, printing, what did they use? Things were a lot different then. Look what happened to the 3M site. It's just dump it. Now look at Hillcrest. Yeah. All the degrees and use mercury. Yeah. Yep. So if you had them on board, to where if we needed an event or whatever to
Well,
check that out.
just from what I know that they have some asbestos tile in there. I don't know how much, what,
Like everybody did.
Yeah,
Every
exactly.
Building of that age.
they used lead for years and years and years to do the print. And I know they have tank, it still has inkjet. So
Yeah,
those are just three of the items.
there was a lot of, some of the discussions we did have, and I even mentioned it here today about, what do you want to do with the site long-term and understanding the vision and what might it be? Well, if we at some point in time wanted to create a, TIF district down there, and these guys understand, well, if you want to do that, there's a step A, a step B before you take step C here. And, it'd be very easy, I think, for the uneducated to screw that up and do it in the wrong order. And then you're, trying to do one of these 1031 reverse exchange things with the IRS or whatever, something along those lines, right? And so that's the other benefit is we have some expertise on our side.
I would agree with that, but I think their experience and just a little bit of a few examples that we offered pretty much has drawn the picture as to where they've been and how they can, multiple ways they can go about doing their business to assist us as they have others. I think we need to continue that dialogue and keep working towards that ultimate goal, like you mentioned. But I think using their knowledge, their experience, because we don't have all that expertise and that experience, it will turn out to be extremely valuable.
Remember, Cole,
They've probably seen thousands of sites. We've seen three, or whatever.
yeah, it's just like, I wanted to pave something, go talk to you, you've done it 10,000 times, right?
It's always nice to have a experienced consultant on board. I see absolutely nothing wrong with figuring it out.
I would agree.
In fact, you made the motion. I mean, do we need to
Right, yeah,
make a physical vote on it?
I think we can.
I think we got a consensus already, so.
Okay, yeah, so the motion would be to authorize EDA members and or staff to engage with the Port Authority with the ultimate goal of getting a proposal to represent us on acquiring that site. I'll second that motion. Any further discussion?
Who seconded? Just for the
Archie.
Archie.
I'm leaving now.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
It's exciting. That's awesome. That's tremendous.
I was pretty
To
shocked.
find a resource like that.
Yes, and then it really helps us continue to move forward as to, we're gonna have the 7th and Margaret development opening up here soon, and
Did they come to you or?
No, I met her, what was her name? She was on the call.
Okay,
East Side Area Business Association.
oh,
And I was talking to her about, we got this building, with the Port Authority doing stuff. And she said,
Tanya Bauer.
yeah, we do. So,
Yeah, I was shocked. My experiences with the Port Authority, I've had a couple over the years, and yeah, I've always just thought of them as the heavy-handed government group down there. And when we had an opportunity to engage with them and find out what it is that they really do, it was interesting. Yeah, I'm a little shocked we haven't engaged with them at this point. A lot earlier. I mean, I think about what they could have done to help us at the Anchor site or Commerce Park, or some of the issues we had with those sites. But
Probably a resource you weren't aware of.
yeah,
All the capabilities.
Well, at least we have the opportunity now. So
That's
let's-
right.
let's take
Absolutely.
advantage of it.
yeah. They did not seem, by the way, one of my concerns was, okay, we got this little small building right now. They deal with this big stuff, but they do plenty of small stuff too.
well, if they're a government agency and they're supposed to help.
well, that's
So,
what he said. He said, if you guys do well, we do well, because like you say, we're close to a lot of their projects, or their goal is to help cities.
Right.
They want to their mission is, so whatever that looks like.
Okay, too bad they don't do a little more outreach so that more people know what they're.
Right.
We know now.
Yes, we do.
Is there any
So,
due
yeah, I think-
diligence you need to do to make sure there's no, I mean, he's telling you the good of what they can do. What are their what's the ratio of the outcomes of some of the business dealings they've had? I mean, he told us some phenomenal ones, but.
Yeah, I think that can be part of our next steps, as we start seeing what can get done. I mean, I think the due diligence will be driven by what the proposals might look like. I mean, if they come in and say, we're gonna meet with the current landowners, we're gonna get all this done, we're gonna try to get a deal done and buy for $1, so you guys can have it for $1, and we're gonna do this work behind the scenes and blah, 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 and when we're all done, we get $100. Well, it's pretty, I don't know that we're gonna do a ton of due diligence at that point, But if they say we get half of whatever the net proceed is, then then obviously we'll need to have those discussions once we know what we're dealing with, right?
I was kind of thinking of down the road, so if they do that balloon contract and then in 3 years, they've got 3 years to work on it. How often does the result not end up what they intended it to be?
Yeah. I mean, I certainly.
Nice to see that, because our environment, we said it probably for 10 years, 10 years, 10 years, and,
And 3 years goes.
3 years, so years.
Well, it's been a long time since Hillcrest has been closed.
It has, yeah. And I think that, that again, at the end of the day, when we look at, take the old anchor box, that's a perfect example. How long did that thing sit? A decade?
That would have been really good.
Well, right. I mean, so that thing sat there for a decade, and as an EDA, we just had to kind of sit here and twiddle our thumbs and wait to hear what was happening because we had no part in it, right? I mean, and maybe that's the difference. Right.
Everybody.
Well, yeah, there was no money available, nothing, and everybody was afraid to.
But if we have, if we're trying to, we're going to meet on this redevelopment master plan to talk about, renewing and realigning what the vision is for, the city. And what's the point of having a vision if we're not actively trying to do anything about it and gain control of some of these key parcels that make a difference? And I would say when we talk about, key parcels in the city, I mean, it's in the middle of our downtown district. How can it not be?
Exactly.
Parcel. I mean, even though it's a relatively small site, we're not going to put, 80 unit. We're not going to put an 80 unit apartment on it. But
If you go from the post office and say in the loft to the corner, I mean,
that's what we found.
Good sized parcel.
That's what I've talked to him about a little bit. Is it's not just that building. It's consolidation of all. And when you consolidate properties, you got to get one before you get the other, before you get the other. I mean, that's usually how it works.
And they're in the process of selling that brick building, the third building.
And that's something that.
No, it's the hairdresser. Yeah, the hairdresser, they've been renting that property. Looking at the owner of the salon is looking at buying property.
But that, I mean, you're always going to have these types of things when you're trying to consolidate. I know, well, even within our city here, when we had these discussions, with Anchor, the Anchor Bank down here, when we were trying to consolidate all of that. I mean, you say, they say, no, well, we don't want to leave town. I'm like, okay, well, we don't want you to leave town. Well, how about if you allow us to include this as part of what might become a developable parcel, we'll make sure that we preserve a good space for you when in whatever comes. Right? I mean, maybe that's the same thing with these folks that are buying that studio right now. Yeah, could be the same conversation. Right? We just want rights to it, or, whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to work out these deals. So.
Well, you'd like to think also if we were able to move forward with the logo, not to drag this out further, but there might be a motivation then for other properties that are adjacent to also take a look and initiate a different conversation with us that they're oblivious to right now, not even thinking about. So there could be a distinct advantage going down the road.
Dennis over here on the corner, they told us, I mean, I remember they said they will never sell that building. It's gone
Well,
well.
right, it costs us a lot of money, but.
Up on 120, the BP. Yep. You know, they said they never sell that. Yep.
So the Burger King, isn't that for sale now?
They're not doing well. There you go. It's pretty slow around. Yeah. I mean, Burger King's as a whole. Yeah.
So, next step, what I'll probably do, I'll talk to Lee, try to set up something, you know, whether you want to be involved, I'll drag you in if anybody else wants to be involved in the initial conversation, but we'll probably get them into town here, kind of lay out, you know, vision. They asked to tour it. We'll get all that set up and then we'll figure out what the next steps are and report back to the next meeting.
As soon as possible. What happened with the tattoo shop? Looks like that's all cleaned up.
A new guy went in, a new tattoo artist went in,
Oh, so it's,
and he's a reputable, good guy. I think he's gonna do well there.
okay, because I seen him out there working on it, all this action going on, and I thought, did the guy?
He's got a good reputation.
Okay.
He's up and up.
And the
He's
next,
not housing homeless people inside.
and the next meeting,
I haven't heard.
so we don't know.
We don't own
We know,
Don't tell me.
that was the last meeting.
Did we get
Yeah, I
paid
wasn't
on
at the
that?
last meeting. I would say. And the next meeting, I might not be able to dispute on. I think we-
Well, we should talk about that.
I kind of had that because I
That's
think
the only time we're
it's going to be a problem.
Well, oh, that's being recorded, don't let that.
We have a couple other items to get to on the agenda. So we have a review of the subsidy policy. I think that went out to everybody via email. I think, I mean, we can discuss it in depth if you like, or just entertain if there's any objections to what's contained in it. Yeah, I think it's, I mean, for what it's worth, I mean, as it unfolded, you know, at the end of the day, the good thing about it is it's effectively, we can edit it at any time. And
We need you and you after the meeting to sign the document.
is this the loan agreement?
This is for the loan.
Right, that's the next. Okay,
Sorry, which one are we on?
we were just discussing a review of the subsidy policy last month. We had talked about that it was presented to council. Council had accepted it. EDA's name was on it. We didn't have time to circulate it in advance, but so we just circulated it to the group. And, you know, again, there's nothing terribly egregious in there. One of the comments I would just say that kind of brought up was this, you know, when you're doing subsidies, are you exchanging jobs and at certain wages and all of this other business? But that can be written into any specific subsidy as they come along. This provides just a kind of a general guidelines as to, you know, how a subsidy might unfold and, you know, gets us essentially current with current state statutes on public subsidies and provides the, you know, key criteria where we're allowed to do them, when they need approvals, when they don't, etc. So. Okay, and nothing, there's no action to be taken there. So we're gonna approve that council, so. And then review and finalize the loan agreement. We have that in the packet.
Yes,
Okay.
so that starts on page 19 of the packet.
I believe that was circulated earlier as well. But in a nutshell, if we want to maybe slowly scroll through, we're granting it's $125,000 loan. maybe scroll down to the next page. So the borrower we've positioned the equipment as collateral, so they're going to acquire the equipment and provide the EDA with the details of that equipment and the purchase price and values, etc. We'll distribute the loan proceeds. If you can scroll back up real quick one page. We'll distribute the loan proceeds once they've demonstrated that. I think they're paying for it first, is what this says. Is that right? But we did talk about a potential of, as long as it's there and it's kind of all verified that we could fund it, as part of that transaction. And once we had some assurances it was going to hit the site, the repayment of the loan, it's a 0 interest loan. It is forgivable. I believe we've got it set over 5 years at 25% a year. And the forgiveness, to achieve that forgiveness, the onus is on the borrower to provide submissions to the EDA each year. And it's fairly simple stuff, but to know that represent that the business is, all the equipment's still there, that the business remains viable, and that they're in compliance with all city codes and things like that. So, and I think that's a really good kind of high level. Yeah. So without objection, we've kind of already approved the loan. So, but without objection, we'll execute that today. Just Brian and I sign that. Okay. So we'll execute that today, and
then
Brandon will execute.
Two companies. Brandon will get a copy and then city law.
I did on a different note, same project though. I did talk to Gary Mulcahy this morning. Just different topic, but I'd asked him if him and Brandon had talked, and they have. And so the old Max Diner site, Gary is going to lease. I didn't really understand this, but start off that you're going to lease it to him, and if he ever moved left or you didn't want him to get rid of the sign, you wanted the sign back, and it was going to be $1 a year. And then somebody proposed a jar of pickles. Or something, I don't know.
Was that something Max used to have on the counter?
It's a private transaction. But I just, it does sound like the Max Diner site is going to be in the new diner site, but still be the property.
So I reached out to Gary and asked him about the sign. And Brandon and I went to a warehouse, and in the warehouse, let's see if I got a picture of it in the warehouse. Sure enough, on the top shelf, back of the warehouse, is the old Max sign. He's got some booths also that Brandon might be able to use for kind of a waiting area. But that sign, as you walk in, would be Max Diner, and it'll be lit and all work. So
$5,000 to restore.
probably, yeah,
It was probably, some of the meals probably broken, have to be replaced, recharged.
they're pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty neat deal. So that's
Spend $5,000 on it, and all they have to do is provide a chart.
apparently that was Gene Burwald's suggestion, or I don't know.
So we had Gene Burwald, Ken Burwald, Tracy Luther, and Gary Mulcahy and Brandon together. It was kind of cool to see. I mean, Gary was like this, and Gene was, we just needed you there.
Probably good I wasn't there when I got 2 jars.
Yeah. A lot of shaking hands, this is the way we do things, so. That's kind of cool.
Worked for you, right?
Well,
If I change it now.
Okay, executive director report.
People still.
No reports that were down to the knick-knack place, try to touch base on that sometimes.
Somebody says.
Treasurer's report, our meeting with the treasurer of the city is pending hiring of a new city manager.
Okay,
Can we get an update on that?
So they have cut off the finalists. There are 22 applicants, I believe, and they'll narrow it down to about 10. And then I'll come to the council and we'll probably be at the end of the year. That's when the final will be done.
Okay. I don't know that we have any pressing issues, do we, treasurer? We have money.
we have money.
We have money and we're not spending it. So,
I think we're going after the maximum for the levy.
you think?
We have.
I'll kick you in the jar.
Homemade.
I don't know me pickle. Oh, now it's homemade. See, now you're getting-
It costs a little more, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The value is-
Yeah.
The only thing I have to report is we have the subcommittee or the, whatever we call it, the joint meeting for review of the master redevelopment plan, which I believe, Archie, you were part of that, right? Was you and I. And so we
I
have,
thought that was Don.
Yeah, I think it's me.
oh,
Don.
20, yeah.
Yes.
sorry, Don.
It's okay.
It is the 25th. Yes, it's 6:30. So it's you and I. Okay. And then on the 21st, we do have a scheduled joint EDA planning meeting. Our next scheduled meeting for that on the 21st at 6:30. The agenda items are going to be the agenda, formalized agenda is not out, but we've kicked around, a couple thoughts and ideas on the wrong email here. Planning the discussion about business retention. They want to talk a little bit about business retention efforts. Just kind of hear what we're doing, what tools we're using, input we're getting from associations, and then talk about a potential feedback loop from that. So I will be able to tell them what we know. Are you in this meeting? The joint EDA? Planning?
The whole EDA.
It's supposed to be the whole EDA and the whole planning
Then
commission.
I will be part of that.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
that is, I think. it'll be in the
Actually, we'll be
council.
in the council chambers.
That's at 6:30.
6:30.
Yes, on the 21st.
on the 23rd.
They proposed a future topic of what if any retail service institutional entities aren't desirable in any certain areas and should be limited in number of proximity. Potential sensitive issue or appropriate after the redevelopment master plan review. And I would agree that it's probably better after the redevelopment master plan. But I think it's good that planning is saying, hey, is there anything you don't want? I think that's good to know, or good to, have those lines of communications. I had proposed that we have a discussion on kind of two primary topics, and that was discuss the planned improvements for the city-owned parking lot south of Luther Auction, and get to hear their inputs or thoughts on the things that are I think a particular concern to planning, whether it's kind of vehicle, pedestrian, bicycle access and movement and connection to Seventh, things like that. I also propose that we discuss this. I just wanted to hear their views on the electrical vehicle charging We've got a couple coming in. What are their thoughts? Is that sufficient? Should we be trying to do something broader? I know we're getting donated or whatever from MMTA, but should we be doing something different back there or bigger? That might be restricted by, the amount of juice we got.
Yeah.
Should it be more? Well, I know. Yeah, but he already ran a pipe, and I don't know how much I don't know how much he got through that pipe. Unless you want to dig up the road again. So, yeah, anyway, just something to talk about, and then I thought we would at least introduce as much as they're able to talk about it. I get a sense that they have some restrictions on being able to talk about specifics, but I did want to just introduce the concept of of us trying to gain control of the Lilly property, that corner. So just so they're aware of it. So if anything winds up in front of them, they can say, maybe we should talk to the EDA. Because things unfold rather quickly. So that's basic agenda items for next Thursday.
So I have a couple of questions. Did we maintain the BP site? Has the city gone in there and mowed it?
Yeah, it looked,
Okay,
when I drove by there, it was down.
okay.
All right, enjoy.
Was it?
It was windy out.
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing is we talk about making that left-hand turn. Scott Mueller gonna sell the property, or, they certainly haven't cleaned it up, that's for sure.
We haven't started any action on that or any effort on that. I know we've had it.
I think
It's a
it's
discussion.
discussion to send the city in there to clean it up and then send them the bill. I don't
Well,
know.
that I know they're working on. That's with code enforcement, but the left-hand turn, I think we should reach out to Target and see if they're willing to, put some money into it too. I think it's for them.
So,
The county gave us the okay to do it, and I'd like to do it sooner than later because that
Yeah.
person.
All of a sudden, something comes along.
Somebody wants to buy that property.
Changes or he's gone next year.
is that?
It's a county road.
No, I understand. I mean, certainly what the disposition of the Mueller property would be, within the purview of the EDA. I'm just wondering about the turn lane. Is that really us, or should that be?
Well, I think that makes the
Should that be?
property more valuable.
And it's just because of the access.
Correct.
And the current limitations.
I remember we had a store on Whiteper Avenue where Wedding Day Jewelers is, and now it's Wings, or it's, no, what is the,
Wings Financial?
no, it's not. It's now, you're switching it into, what's the new chicken?
Oh, chicken,
Chick-fil-A.
No.
It's right across
Raising
the street.
Cane, Raising Cane, isn't it?
Yeah, Raising Cane, that's right. And we went through the state, we went through the county, we went through everything and got access to that property because it was 0.8 of a mile to go around. And we got all the approvals and the mall said, nope. The only access to this land, according to our deal, is on our access is only. We will not allow, and now they have an access right between Arby's and
Malls don't get it. They don't get a say anymore.
Yeah, single one way, right in, right out. Type of deal.
They don't have
I was like, we might as well shot ourselves in the head.
Don't have as much stroke as they used to. So do we want to put that maybe as a discussion topic for next month, or do we need to have some action taken on that? I don't know who would do it. I mean, that to me would be a staff reach out. to target. Not sure we have the staff to do
I think it's worth discussion.
All they can do is say no, right?
that. Yeah, I don't even know, how do you start that? Do you go,
Can't hurt them.
yeah, do you go over and talk to the store manager and try to climb the chain, or what do
Yeah,
you,
right.
or do you talk to, Target Real Estate? So, so we'll throw it on. Their staff is going to reach out to Target about, pitching in on the, turn lane. Do we have a budget for that? Is there a budget for that?
Discussion, we'll get the discussion.
Aren't they in the process of proposing next year's street improvement plan though?
For the city,
Yeah,
yeah.
would it be, should it be included in that? Or does the county actually do the work?
It's a county street. so,
Okay.
It just depends on, I think that it's EDA driven because that allows that piece over there to be more marketable, having it open and closed.
Well, right, so then to me, it shouldn't be just Target, it should be Target, Mueller and Valvoline and,
Yeah,
whoever owns the thing on the corner now and the credit union.
right.
Yeah, it should be all of them. That's not that far away from what I was talking about, 0.8 of a mile to go around.
Right.
To have access to those two properties.
Yeah, to get off a major thoroughfare and take a right and a left.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing going there is a destination place. Cause it can't be an impulse. And to get highest value, you want an impulse place too.
We don't know what the cost would be. Thousands, hundreds.
So that, I mean, that's something that WSB could give a ballpark estimate on in 10 minutes. They do that all the time. So you're talking a non-signal left-hand turn. Yeah. Yeah, so it's a blow by, right? And yeah, I mean, they could give an estimate on that in 10 minutes. We can get updates on paving.
Yeah, if it's too
Mr.
expensive,
Shifty over there.
it's like, well,
Okay, Mayor?
Real quick, we have a quick trip ribbon cutting, October 28th, it's Thursday at 11 o'clock. Yeah, the quick trip.
Good place.
It's funny, the police chief mentioned that he was going to be the ribbon cutting. And I said, well, I'm not sure. So I found out there's a separate ribbon cutting for the donut machine.
So he gets to cut the ribbon on the donut machine.
I told I to Phil, really?
Did they get that liquor sale provision that they wanted or whatever?
Yeah, they don't know.
Okay.
He didn't say anything today in his presentation.
No, he didn't say anything about it.
No.
I don't think anything's come through community services either. For permitting.
That's basically all.
Okay, any other reports from EDA?
None for me.
Okay, so our next meeting is scheduled for the 9th of November. And so who are we gonna be missing?
So,
fortunately, I'm leaving on the 10th, so that I will be there.
Are you going AZ or South or?
I'm going to California, Palm Springs.
And you're gone for the winter?
No.
Wishful.
I'm having a house remodeled on Silver Lake.
Oh.
I gotta go over there every day.
All right, so it sounds like we just one absentee. Then we should be fine. We'll go ahead and conduct the meeting and we'll brief you when you get back. We can bring turkeys.
Kevin.
oh, we don't know what that.
You'd still have
Maybe
quorum
at the
though.
first of the year, let's maybe look at the schedule or look at the schedule for next year, if we want to meet every month or meet every other month. I don't know if we meet
Yeah,
every month. We can talk about that.
Okay. Yeah, my
I'm sitting
only,
here looking at when Terry asked me, it was every other month.
Yeah.
And now I'm sitting here looking at, okay, we got something on the 21st, the 25th.
Yeah.
It's like, what the heck?
I'm caught up in
well, we'll, maybe we make sure we get that on the agenda for, 2022 schedules. Yeah, one of the things we've done with other, I've done with some other boards and things that we sit on is, we do we'll do either every other month or in some case, in one of them, which has been pretty successful. We actually do a 4-hour once a quarter. And then we do a 1-hour Zoom call once a month just to catch up.
Yeah.
And Zoom calls tend to be a little bit easier for a lot of people, because you don't have to, you can be in California and hop on.
Yeah.
We always have the option for Zoom at this, in the monthly meetings.
My only concern is that if we go every other month, we're gonna have times where there are things that can't wait 60 days. And even if it's an abbreviated agenda to, take a vote on something or just make sure
Or if
everyone's.
there's nothing going on, you can cancel it. Hopefully, I guess there is that option too. We're not just gonna create a meeting and have a meeting.
Yeah, but we don't need to react to the same thing we just talked about. Today, we went through the same groups next month with no additional information that we enough to discuss. I see both sides of the fence. I'm thinking with the Lilly building and with the consultation potential with the Port Authority, we're probably gonna have some items on our agenda that will require discussion at least in December.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to keep moving that ball, but we can always do that again too via Zoom and, if we have one agenda item that requires discussion, we can truncate these things down to half hour, 40
Well,
minutes.
I am retired, so I really, if I'm available, I can go on. Although it does cause problems with golf sometimes.
I'm looking at that 6:30 meeting next Thursday,
I was just looking at that, I might be on.
and I might be drinking earlier in the day, so I guess I'm gonna have to pause on.
That's what
That's my-
6:30.
The only good
That's
thing
my
is
golf
that
day.
at 6:30,
6:30.
I looked at the sunset, 6:33 was last night.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, you're not gonna be on the golf course.
I'll be done, but yeah, that's, but I'll
Yeah, the 19th was probably the most important place to be.
have to play it sober. So anyway,
I might have a problem with that too, but I had that 6 o'clock, but I'm not sure if I can change it.
okay. I mean, if we can get I think as long as we can get a handful of people at that joint meeting would be good. At least one council member and a couple other EDA members would be ideal.
Do we still have to have quorums for that?
I don't think we're taking any action. No,
These
these are,
discussions, so we're on the same page.
the intent of those is, and I think those are once a quarter, and the intent is to just stay engaged with planning, so we don't, we can kind of give them update on what we're doing and where our head's at on certain things, and, that way if something pops up in front of them, we don't.
I gotta go, I gotta go sign checks that they forgot to hand me.
Okay, if there's nothing further, then we'll adjourn the meeting, and do we have the loan doc to sign?
Yes, so Brian will have them down the page.
Okay.
And then Brandon will be here tomorrow morning.
Oh, great, okay.
I'm gonna come back to the office.
Probably.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you guys.
We'll see you guys.
Here, Tom.